I'll be honest, guys. I'll be honest. I've been repeating myself, and I've really have and I'm serious when I tell you this. I've been repeating myself when I was saying that this Morocco team scared me. And I've been saying that since the beginning of the tournament. When I saw that we could potentially face them in the quarterfinals, I was not happy. But and I was scared right before this game, but these guys just keep proving us wrong, right? They can't. It's hard to be a doubter of this team, right? Um, wow, wow. This should have been more. I think that's the first thing to say is this should have been more. And what I think really terrifies me about this team and terrifies me, and I'm saying that in the good sense because I'm really happy when I say this, is that you don't really feel like they really had to break that much of a sweat. Right? And this isn't like every game. What's the record for France, right? I think they only conceded 2 goals in this tournament and scored. I think the Paraguay game was the only game where we didn't score um more than 1 goal. In this game, we should have scored more, right? Paraguay was a little different. That one was an exception. It was more about the team that we faced, but it was also we were also not threatened at all defensively. But this team is strong. I thought going into it, the reason why I really, really doubted and I felt really scared about this game, first of all, is we just beat Morocco 2-0 again. And I thought Morocco was gonna come out with that vengeance feeling, right? We knocked them out of there. We're the ones who ended the best ever African run in the World Cup. We ended their amazing run with a score line, which, and in that game, 2-0 was actually a flattering score for France, right? Morocco was dangerous and they were really solid and they really, pushed us. And we scored a goal early, which allowed us to, have to breathe early in this game. And this was almost the opposite, right? In this game, France should have scored really early, didn't, right? I think in the first half, we missed a penalty. Dean hit the bar. Doué missed an absolute one-on-one versus the keeper and scuffed a shot. Upamecano had and Rabiot both had point-blank headers that got stopped by Bunu. That first half from Bunu was something to behold, right? Um, it's crazy how it's hard, like I don't want to be cocky, being French. It's hard not to feel cocky with this team, right? And I was I was always considering how for me we hadn't really tested a team that I thought could really, push us. I thought that was going to be Morocco. Um, but it wasn't. It wasn't. And I'm actually pretty disappointed by Morocco's performance. I'll be really honest. Um, I expected more. I thought, we saw a little bit of what they could do in the beginning of the second half, right? I think they put us in dangerous position in the beginning of the second half after we hadn't scored, right? But that's the thing with this French team is if you start if you start pushing them back on one counter, they can kill you. They can kill you. And that's what happened, right? And I that's what I think I forgot to see when I analyzed this team is I forget that because all right, so the way that I saw it, and I'll tell you this right now, I thought that the only teams that could really beat us would be the teams that deprived this front four of the ball, right? So teams that were really good at keeping possession. So the Spains of this world, the Portugals of this world, the Moroccos of this world, who are top three best, ball carrying and ball keeping teams in the world, at least internationally. Um, Now we didn't see that in the first half, and that's what I really liked. We were able to completely. suffocate them. The press was top notch, full level, and we'll talk about Mbappe because I think there's a lot to say, not only about how well he's done statistically and the goals he's scored and the assists he's given, but the attitude. This is yet another game where I'm gonna praise Mbappe's attitude as a captain. He doesn't do unnecessary pressing, but he presses when it counts, right? Um, this France team is very good at, so I think defensively, right? This France team's tactic is we press first, right? Everybody goes forward. Dembele helps Mbappe press. Then Olise will be here. Sometimes he'll be here. Other times Doué will be here or here. Point is, they leave this blank, right? They leave this gap in the midfield, right? Sometimes Koundé will press. So sometimes Koundé will come here and help out, right? And Dean will might come help, although I didn't see him as much going forward when we were pressing. And then when if they do get, beyond that line, we have this guy, this we'll have to talk. We'll have to talk about Kone. We'll have to talk about Kone. And then Saliba and Upamecano are just they're monsters, right? They're they're counter attack killers. They just destroy counter attacks, even though they're center backs, which I think is pretty crazy, but we'll get to that. My point is good pressing, and which allowed us to keep the ball, and then we were able, I think we were able to read the game really well. Morocco came out with a different attitude in the second half. They came out, hard. They were putting us under pressure, but that is when we're at our best, right? Elise turns into the guy who just runs back and forth, right? We sit very deep when we have the ball, when we don't have the ball, and everybody comes back and defends. Mbappe is the only one that really stays, and everybody else comes in and helps out, right? Once we get the ball back and we get it to Elise, counter is on. That's the thing with Elise. He hasn't had his best game today, and we'll talk about him, but he didn't have his best game today. But that's the thing with Elise is the class that he has, the thing that he has. Even though today, I think in the final gesture, right, the passes were off. He didn't really pass his man too much. He was on the right a lot at the beginning of this game. In the first half, he was a right winger, right? But whenever we're under pressure and the ball gets to him, he'll create the counter, right? That's why he's so key for us. And that's why we're so threatening. That's why teams don't dare to really press us and really push us at the back, and that's how we scored our goals today. Actually, the second goal was a little bit more scrappy. No, sorry, the first goal, but the second goal was counter, pure and simple, right? And before that first goal, right, we were so threatening on the counter. And when I say that we should have scored more, I didn't mean just the first half, right? I also meant the second half after we scored two goals back to back. Mateta had tons of chances when he came on. Barcola had a lot of chances when he came on. We are on the counter. We should actually be more deadly than we are. I think it was just, the game was settled 2-0. Um, so this team is really wow. It's impressive, and it's hard. It's hard not to think that if this team goes in and wins the World Cup, and I really don't want to project here, but with the ease at which they've been able to do their games and the way they've breezed through a lot of those games, or at least obviously, that's really easy to say. You don't say that, but that's what they make it feel like when we watch the games as spectators. And the fact that I love that Paraguay game, right? Because it showed a different side of them. It showed that they were able to handle tough football, pressure football, nasty football. And what I love about this team as well is this whole attitude, right? They don't complain. They don't they don't talk to the referees. They don't make silly fouls. They really you do really you feel like these guys are technical robots, right? Like you kind of feel like, especially after that Paraguay game, that you can't get to them spiritually, right? They are too focused. They're too locked in. They make you feel too much like they're on a mission. right? And I don't think I've ever seen that before with this much quality at the same time. This France team could become, if they win, one of the best sides to ever win the World Cup. I think so. I think so. I think when you compare it to that Brazil team that won in 2002, the triple R, I think you could actually make a lot of similarities. I think Dembele has that Rivaldo role, that guy who can score and assist and but also, puts himself at the service in terms of offensively, works well and puts himself in second light compared to, the guy who I think has resembled um R9 the most since R9 retired in terms of style of play and in terms of efficiency in front of goal. And then you have Elise, who reminds me a lot of, Ronaldinho, but obviously different styles, right? There's a lot of similarities, but I think also this team has a lot more backbone, right? Rabiot is sensational. Kone, we'll get to him, and Saliba and Upamecano are just both top five center backs in the world, right? I think Upamecano is definitely top four, maybe even top three. I would put him top. I think my top three in terms of center backs is Willian Pacho and then Saliba and Upamecano. I think Saliba and Pacho can fight for first place, and I think Upamecano can come third. I still think the reason why Upamecano comes behind them is not necessarily how good is he is as a defender. It's just sometimes when he has the ball, and we actually saw that today when there was a cross coming in, and he should have dealt with it better, and there was a loop that could have ended, unfortunately, really bad for us that went right over Mignon's goal and ended in the corner. Upamecano sometimes is capable of a misstep of a that can cost, right? Of a mistake that can cost. That's why I don't put him as high as the other two. But he's right up there in terms of like level, especially because he's actually more capable of creating chances than the other guys. But when I look at center backs, I look especially at the defensive aspect of the game. And I think this whole ensemble, this whole colonne vertebrale, the whole middle line, that whole middle structure, and the fact that these guys always exchange, their place every time. And Mbappe comes in and he exchanges with Due and he comes on the left a lot as well. This whole area right here is top class everywhere. Everywhere. I do think ultimately wing our our wing backs are a little, not of the same level, but today there's absolutely nothing bad to say about them. They were absolutely fantastic. So we'll see, let's not project ourselves. So far, all we can say for certain is this team is scary. This team is good, really, really good. And this team so far hasn't had to break much of a sweat. Now, I want to talk about him because as much as and I actually didn't, create a page for Dembele, but I really should have. But I'll start with Dembele first. He scored again today. He has 5 goals and two assists, I think, or 2 or 3 assists in this World Cup in 7 games as a winger. I think that's the best stats as a winger. We know that that's no longer, his best position for Dembele, but he doesn't care, right? This is Ballon d'Or level. This Dembele today, for me, he was the best forward we had in this game by far. Whenever he got on the ball, he looked a threat. He looked dangerous. He tried his little passes in between the legs of the defenders, always on the ground. He found Upamecano really early in the game for a header that should have gone in, if not for an amazing Bono save. He was absolutely amazing today. I'm really happy, really happy. After that Paraguay performance that worried me a little bit. I didn't worry me, but I did, objectively think it was not a good performance. This is how you answer. This is how you get back. This is Ballon d'Or. This is Ballon d'Or level. And that goal was typical Dembele. Typical Dembele. I loved Mbappe's involvement in that goal, how he runs in behind and creates space for Dembele to do the thing that he's most deadly at. You never know what foot he's going to use. That's why he's so deadly as number nine. When he's arriving in that spot, you don't know if he's going to go left or if he's going to go right. And he went. You could see that he knew that the defenders thought he was gonna go left, and so he went right and clinical finish. So shout out Dembele. He was, I think, the best player of the front four today. I don't think he was the best French player in the team because this guy was on the field. But apart from that, Dembele Ballon d'Or level, that was, and that campaign, that World Cup campaign is the best way you can shut up everybody because you didn't just perform individually, but you kept that selflessness about you that we see at PSG that makes you into the deadly player and the amazing player that you are as well. So props, Dembele. I have very little words, but this post is actually not as relevant as I want because I don't think that's the point I'm going to make. I just want to I want to show you guys this. We've only played quarterfinals, and obviously there was another game, right? But Mbappe World Cup 2022, which is prime World Cup levels that we've ever seen in terms of players playing in one competition. He's already beaten those stats with one game less, right? And that last game, that final is where he had three of those goals, right? It's absolutely insane. But over everything, I really want to emphasize how much he leads this team. This guy is the exemplary leader of this France team. And I doubted, right? The way that he acted at Real Madrid this season, it really didn't make me think so. But this guy is exemplary. I love that he spoke out against that Paraguayan senator, against against the racist comments that he got. I love that he's not afraid to speak out. For those who don't know, speaking out about, stuff like this in France politics in general, although I think this is beyond politics, right? But he speaks out about the extreme right in France. It's very brave because the French do not like at all when big stars, big people speak out about politics and stuff like that. And I think that's what makes him a really special captain. He doesn't care. He will speak out. He is not afraid. He knows of the consequences, and he does it in a very, very smart way. He's very, very good at talking to the press when it comes to stuff like this. He knows how to articulate his point very well. I loved the post that he had against that senator, that Paraguayan senator. That is why he is such an inspiration to a lot of people. In fact, I think he's getting overhated too much, right, for what he does for France. I think in terms of what he does for France, there's nothing you can say, right? The Euros, footballistically, you could criticize some of the Euro performances, but realistically, in terms of leadership and example, the way he leads this team, he acts completely flawlessly. He tracks back and helps out defensively, which I was looking at that a lot for Mbappe, right? In this tournament. I really wanted to see that above the goals. That was the one thing I wanted to see. He doesn't press constantly like Dembele does every game for PSG. And in fact, I would still say Dembele presses more than him, right? You've seen a couple times during this tournament that whenever a center back or a goalkeeper almost makes a mistake is because Dembele hunts them down like in a similar way that Haaland does. But when Mbappe loses the ball, he comes back and gets it. He's absolutely committed to the bit. He sacrifices, he makes runs that open space for other players, hence the second goal. It's not just the goals, and it's the attitude as well. You can tell that these guys, in terms of attitude, I think he's a real leader as well, Rabiot, by the way. You have Rabiot, you have Saliba, you have guys in this team that lead by example, but none more than Mbappe. None more than Mbappe. I'm not going to go over it too much. I have a lot to say about his behavior. I want people to know that in terms of behavior, the one thing that he's been criticized for most this season with Real Madrid, if he has a coach that speaks the same language as him, he'll do everything that you want out of a star player like that. And you can tell that even though he knows he's the star player and he soaks up the pressure, he's the one who takes responsibility. Out of 7 games that France have played in this World Cup, Mbappe has opened the score for 6 of them. The only one who opened the score in the other game was Dembele when he scored his hat trick on an Mbappe assist, by the way. This guy knows the responsibility he has on his shoulders to perform in terms of, stats. And I think that's helping him to be the guy that we're seeing. But that's beyond that. What we're seeing is way beyond that. He's encouraging his teammates. He's completely not hot-headed. He gets into the mind of the guys who play dirty against him. He got to the minds of the Paraguayan players, even though they were playing dirty, right? He led the team. He defends his players. I love that Mbappe. That Mbappe and that France team, you can't say anything. You can't. He is the best World Cup. He is becoming the best World Cup player in history. We're talking about competition with Pele, with Messi. Maybe that's it, right? You could put Maradona for his one season, but he has 3 world-class seasons in the World Cup, and he could have more, right? We never know. We shouldn't, speak too much about the future, but even if the journey were to end in the next game, right, against Belgium or against Spain, whatever happens, right? The fact that he's won one and that he has those stats and his attitude in those competitions, in those 3 campaigns, right? As long as he's won one, you can't argue against anything, right? That's it. And he could win another one. And that final, he was, I don't praise him as much about that final as other people do. Obviously, the hat trick in a World Cup, hard to criticize. I do think people tend to forget sometimes that him and France, they were all bad for 70 minutes. But he's the one who brought everybody back, right? Him and Colomwani were the ones who brought this France team back. So not enough to say about his campaign, about how he is in the World Cup and how he owns the biggest stage. And it's not an easy thing to become the captain of this team. Especially when we all thought Griezmann was going to get it before Mbappe would. Deschamps dropped a lot on his shoulders, but he took it and he owned it like the champion that he is. And props. There's nothing to say. He is just an absolute monster. When it comes to Morocco, I was pretty disappointed. Um, I thought going forward, especially in the first half, they were really, really disappointing. It did feel like that team that was a little scared of their opponent, and I thought they didn't really have much reason to be. And then the second half was better. They just got, destroyed by that goal. Um, shout out to my man Hakimi, my PSG player that I love, and he was exemplary throughout this tournament, exemplary throughout this World Cup. I didn't think this match would be as big of a difference in level than it was. I think what really, really cost Morocco on top of everything is the fact that they don't have depth. They don't have a bench. They have Saibari off. They don't have a guy to replace him. Um, Mazraoui had to come into the center back position, and they had to have a new guy on the left. It's not their fault. And I want to really, really give a shout out to their amazing World Cup campaign. I think that they've made Africa really proud yet again. Unfortunately for them, they came up against the best team in their best form in this World Cup. They did actually have an off day in the first half because we should have been 3 goals up in that first half at least. But they are such a good team, and they are a threat in 4 years from now. They will be a threat 4 years from now. This Moroccan team will only grow more and more and more and more, especially with this guy pulling the strings, who today, wasn't as good as in the first half as we would have liked to see him, but he woke up in the second, and you can tell the difference. He knows how to scan, he knows how to look at the game and organize the game. Even against France, he was able to show some bits of that today. Now let's go over the team for France because I want to talk about everybody. First of all, Mignon yet again. Mignon, being a goalkeeper in that kind of team is tough because you're really only he's only really been per game, he's only really been asked to do one save. And yet again today there was one save, maybe two saves, which he was solid, rocky. Nothing was gonna get past him today. Um, so it's hard to, give him props because he hasn't had a lot to do, but I will give him props because it's hard to warm up into a game when you're a goalkeeper if you don't have a lot of, shots to negotiate, shots to stop, chances to show yourself. And he showed himself in the best way that he could. Solid. And he's on four clean sheets out of 6 games, I think. How many games? Yeah, 6 games. I said seven earlier. My bad. It's 6 games. So yeah, Dembele, by the way, 5 goals, 2 assists, 2 or 3 assists in 6 games. So can't use stats against him. I've already talked about Dembele, so I won't come back to him. Upamecano, I think I've already talked about a little bit. Um, that was an Upamecano-esque game, right? In terms of stopping counters, in terms of bodying, physically speaking, Upamecano is undefeatable, right? You can't defeat this guy physically. And then he had his one mishap that looked a little weird, but that was an Upamecano game. Solid, strong, amazing, and then one mistake. Today it didn't cost us, which was great. I have nothing left to say about Saliba, honestly. Saliba is a monster. He he has no flaws, and he's so cool and quiet and just very quietly destroys all of your offense. If if France are as good as they are defensively, these two are the main reason. This center back partnership is absolutely insane, and he is responding to every expectation I had for his World Cup. He's leading this line. Considering that I don't really rate Koundé defensively that much, although today I have nothing to say about Koundé. He was absolutely fantastic, absolutely great. Nothing bad to say about Koundé. And Dean, we know that that's not his strength. Saliba just swoops in and takes care of everything. I haven't seen him make a single mistake in this World Cup. Not a single one. I lose words for Saliba. Absolutely monsters. Kunde, great. I don't. It's not making me change my mind necessarily about who I think should play, which was Warren, and I love. Thank you, Deschamps, for having played Warren today. He was great when he came on. That physicality, that running. That's exactly what we needed to keep a score, right? He was an annoyance to those Moroccan players who wanted to build up from the back and start, putting pressure onto France after the 2-0. He was amazing. I still think he should play above Koundé, but I have nothing bad to say about his game and about those last 2 games that he had for France. He's growing into this tournament, and that's great. I love to see that. Dean, what I love about Dean, first of all, defensively, he's picked up his game, right? This is 2 games in a row where he swoops in and he knows where to be, where to clear situations. He wasn't really threatened that much on his side as well, even though he had, Hakimi and Brahim Diaz. We did see at some point some weaknesses, right? It's normal. He had really, really good players in front of him, and that's not his strength defensively. He's not. We know he's not the best at that. But what I really liked about his game is, and we talked about this, right? We talked about how Dean being in this team is a problem because his best trait being, crossing that left foot that he has that hit the crossbar off of a mean shot, by the way, and a great Bono save that actually should have been a corner. He didn't see it, whatever. Um, he can't really use it here, right? He has no forwards that he can really cross the ball to. He doesn't have a Giroud, he doesn't have a Mateta. Um, in most of that game anyway. He doesn't have a guy he can give the ball to, but that the calm, absolutely fantastic. He is so sure on the ball. He's really good at combining and making sure that his forwards and Rabiot, they get on the ball very well and they know they can rely on him to sweep up the ball and keep possession. He's very good at that. And I'm really glad that Deschamps has made a decision on the left back. And I think it's the right one. I still would have liked to see Lucas Hernandez, but at the point we're at, absolutely put Dean. Nothing back to say about Dean. Rabiot had a Rabiot for France game. Absolutely fantastic. Everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. Never lost the ball, ever. Created chances. Sweeps in and helped Kone sweep in all the sweep all the counterattacks and started all of our counterattacks. Um, Nothing bad to say. Rabiot, fantastic. You will never ever hear as long as you keep playing like that, I will never ever criticize you, and I will never ever ever drop you from that team ever again if you keep playing like that. Wow, Manu Kone, my man of the match today. I don't know if I said that he was also my man of the match against Paraguay last time. I think I must have said somebody else as well, but I don't think I've ever seen him put a bad performance for France, ever. Um, he is he has no weakness to his game. Zero weakness. He had a shot that was deflected that looked scary as well when we were at 0-0. But on the ball, unmovable, untouchable, just great on the ball. Good at, starting, finding Elise as well, which is really important for our tactic. And defensively, man, defensively, it's like once Morocco got through that pressing barrier, they had a whole other problem to deal with in Manu Kone. They had a whole other problem to deal with. And I can't emphasize this enough. On the ball, Manu Kone is as good as it gets. And he's a different style than the Vitinhas and Pedris of this world. But you can't get the ball off him. You can't. He's physically too strong and he keeps the ball too close to him. And he's just too good. He has to start in this team. But then what do you do with Tchouaméni, who also has to start in this team? What do you do with Rabiot, who also has to start in this team, right? Props to Deschamps, by the way. This front four, going with a front four is working. And I'm glad that he went for it. Must have not been an easy decision for him, being the Italian defensive mindset, football that he has, but he made the right call. And he's turned this team into an absolute joy to watch. And what I love about Deschamps' approach offensively as well, which I didn't think he had that in him, is the constant switching in positions. They switched positions all the time, but I saw Elise a lot in the left today, right? Doué was everywhere. Mbappe came in here, came in here, came in here. Dembele was a striker a lot of the time as well. Came in here to score his second goal for that period of time. It kind of seems like there's these periods where they know they have to in the game where they know they have to start switching, right? And I love that. It makes them impossible to defend, right? They all have the quality to play in all different positions on the field, and Deschamps is using it. Deschamps is using this. He's not leaving them on one side of the field and making it predictable for the opposing defenses to defend against. And this is exactly what Roberto Martinez doesn't know how to do. He has no tactics, Roberto Martinez for Portugal. That's exactly what Roberto Martinez didn't do, and this is exactly what Deschamps knows how to do. Um, so all right, Elise today, not his best game. This is going like within, and I think I've already said this, but like in the last gesture, right, that final pass was not there. The shots were completely off today. He missed countless good chances that for him should have been at least on target, if not goals, right? We've seen that the way that he just comes in from the right side and finds space to shoot and then puts it top corner. Those balls were given to him today, and he missed them. So we can't call that a great Elise performance, but it was still Elise, man. Whenever he got the ball back to goal, he turned his defender and just started a counter, right? It all starts with him. He is still the key player to this system. and how without him, I think this is the only guy where you take him off of this team, this France team looks different. He's the only one because he's the only one who can do what he does. He's the only one. Shirky is also very good in that position, but he's not as good as turning his defender with one move like that and start a counter like Elise can. Although, Shirky's very good at keeping the ball, and then when you're up the field, a Shirky is quite the useful tool to have. And then I've maybe a little thing on Due. Good game. There's not a lot to say about Due, right? Like we know that he is not the guy that we're counting on the most, but today he comes out with a beautiful touch, which turns into an assist when he gives it to Mbappe, and Mbappe just clinically finishes his beautiful first goal. But when out of that left wing position, what we really need from that position in this system is running, defending, hard work. And Due and Barcola both provide greatly, greatly in that area. And that's all we need them to do. Everything else is bonus. And today, bonus was there, right? He had this assist. You know, when those left wingers are not getting a lot of help in terms of offense, right? You do feel like they are a little bit isolated technically compared to the other three. That's the tactic. That's the sacrifice that we make in order to make this whole work. But Dewey is really good at getting a foul, keeping the ball, and then he did this little, Neymar first touch again. We know we have an amazing player in this guy, and he can. If ever these guys don't pull up, we know that he can create a difference for us, and like he did for Paraguay, right? So we love him and a really, really good performance and a performance that we expect from him in this team. So that's it. That's pretty much my analysis on this game. Like I said, this game was surprisingly easier than I anticipated, which is only a good thing. Because I really thought this Morocco team was going to be able to give us a run for our money. But I do also want to again give a huge shout out to the back-to-back great World Cup performances that this Morocco team has had. Unfortunately for them, they need to stop falling against France. They need to stop falling against France. Spain would be a really difficult opponent for France because if Spain is able to keep the ball, I still think if you're able to deprive this team of the ball and slow the game down enough that they get frustrated, they could be put in difficult situations. But apart from that, this France team leaves us no reasons to doubt them. And no matter what happens, right, we can be proud as French people of the tournament that they've shown because despite the beautiful football that's probably been the most beautiful football that's been shown in this tournament. It's the attitude, it's the way of play, it's the style of play, it's how they don't create any problems. I've never seen like the only time France has ever had refereeing problems and scandals is when Paraguay had them on us, right? This team is hard not to like. And you can see it online. A lot of people who are not France supporters, who in fact would be France haters, um, can't help but admire this team. And that is props to all of them, Deschamps especially, Mbappe especially, but everybody, every single one of them. You can tell that this group lives well, and we're very proud. We're very, very proud as French, as the French, as French people. So props, and I hope that you'll keep going because you deserve a World Cup for the tournament that you're showing us. And best of luck to the other teams for their quarterfinals. I'll be paying attention very, very closely. And we'll see what happens. See you guys in the next video.